Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
O Tirupati Venkatesha, Srinivasa, నీవిచ్చిన ఈ జన్మకు విలువ కట్టుకో. నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో. ఆపద మృక్కులు మాచి పెంచుకో, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో. ఓ తిరుపతి వెంకటేశ, ఓ తిరుపతి వెంకటేశ, ఓ శ్రీనివాస, నీవిచ్చిన ఈ జన్మకు విలువ కట్టుకో, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో. కొండంత సంసారం మోయలేని మానవులం, ఏడు కొండలనెక్కి రమ్మంటే రాలేము. కొండంత సంసారం మోయలేని మానవులం, ఏడు కొండలనెక్కి రమ్మంటే రాలేము. సాటి మనిషి సౌఖ్యానికి సాయపడని దుర్బలులం, సాటి మనిషి సౌఖ్యానికి సాయపడని దుర్బలులం. స్వర్గానికి నిచ్చి మమ్ము వేయలేయము, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో. మా మనసు మా హృదయం పరస్పరం శత్రువులై, మా లోపలి దివ్య జ్యోతి మసకేసిపోతున్నది. అహంకారం అనగించి మమకారం తొలగించి, అహంకారం అనగించి మమకారం తొలగించి, చేయూతనిచ్చి మమ్ము చేరదీసుకో, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో. ఆపద మృక్కులు మాచే ఇప్పించుకో, నీ కొండకు నీవే రప్పించుకో.
Om Shri Sai Ram, dear brothers and sisters of our Sai family in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji and globally. Offering my humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Mother Sai. Welcome to yet another very special online Ladies Devotional offering. Let us begin by acknowledging the First Nations people of Australia upon whose land we meet on today. We pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. We also acknowledge the traditional elders in New Zealand and Fiji. With us here this evening, we have Sisters Selvanie and Sharanya Naidoo to share some of their lovely and memorable experiences in Bhagavan's mission. Sister Selvanie was a nurse educator for the past 15 years and is currently employed in the Faculty of Health at the Southern Cross University in the Gold Coast. Previous to education, Sister specialized in intensive care nursing for 30 years. Sister Selvanie has also been on the board of governors of the Institute of Sathya Sai Education Australia. Sister was also actively engaged in developing learner and facilitator work packages for individual transformation workshops and conducting these workshops for health professionals over these many years. By Bhagavan's grace, Sister also completed her diploma in human values and completed a study in advanced diploma in human values in Canberra. She has been an SSE teacher since 2002. She also delivered virtual SSE lessons for all groups during the recent pandemic. Sister was the past National Education Coordinator and is also one of the National SSE teacher trainers. Her daughter, Sister Sharanya Naidoo, was blessed to be born into a Sai family and has been a state youth leader and a center study circle facilitator. Sharanya has helped organize Sai retreats, run workshops, and delivered keynote speeches at many of our Sai conferences and events. Sister Sharanya has also authored a book called The Quiet Voice Within, Discovering and Following Your Inner Voice. Sister Sharanya professionally worked as a physiotherapist and a life coach. She now owns and manages a physio clinic with her husband in Melbourne and is also a loving mother to an energetic 12-year-old boy. Please join me in warmly welcoming Sisters Selvanie and Sharanya Naidoo.
Oh. With love and gratitude to our very dear Lord, Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Om Sai Ram. Om Sai.
Sai Ram, everyone. We'd like to thank the Ladies Wing and the Sai Organization of Australia for having us today. We've been thoroughly enjoying all the previous videos and we feel very privileged to be included amongst those group of women. So I'd like to start off with a question to you, Mom. When and how did you first come to know Swami?
It was in 1970 and I was 12 years old at that time, and a neighbor invited us to his home to have a look at this movie that he was showing, and it was projected on the wall and it was all about Sai Baba. And what attracted me was the miracles, of course, and then Michael Jackson was, at that time, very popular, and Swami's hair and everything. And also, even at that age, what I loved was the bringing all the religions together, because especially when we have Christians and Muslims and everyone in our class. And I thought that was such a great thing.
In South Africa.
Yeah, in South Africa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was the beginning. And then a couple of years later, in 1973, we're traveling from Durban, South Africa, to Cape Town. My parents were going to Europe and India. And we traveled with an aunt and uncle in a Mazda van. So we had 3 adults in the front and all the children were packed in the back of the van. And we stopped halfway, which is a city called Port Elizabeth. And we went into a friend's home in there. And on the table was the book of about Swami, the man of miracles. And we asked if we could borrow it. And on our way back, you know, we're going to Cape Town. We thought we'd read it to Cape Town. And on the way back, we'll drop it back off. And so my cousin and I, we shared the book. I read 1 chapter and then I handed it over to my cousin.
That's Uncle Rajan?
That's Dr. Rajan Kupan, yes, that's him.
Yeah.
And we read the whole book, and on the way back we returned it. So that was the very early days of introduction.
So funny you mentioned Michael Jackson, because my grandfather bought a ring for me that had Swami's face, just his face in blue. And I used to wear it to school, and when people asked me about it, I would just say, it's Michael Jackson. That was just an easy answer. Can you share a time when you knew that Swami was with you?
All right, so now we fast forward to when I started my nursing training. Now, everyone in the family, including uncles, you know, they all knew that perhaps I'm going to be a teacher just like my parents. You know, it was taken for granted. And however, something changed in me into nursing. I had to look after my granny, you know, while I was waiting for the application to do teaching in the university. So looking after my granny, so we had a nurse come in and, you know, put a nasogastric tube and everything, and I was doing all nursing care for her, helping my mom. And I thought, why couldn't I do this all my life, you know? So that's where it started off. So told my uncles that, you know, I want to do nursing, totally against it. No, none of their children were going to go and live in a hostel, eat hostel food, be away from home, all of that I got. Then I convinced my mother and father that I want to go and do nursing. And they said, okay, fine, you know, that's okay. You go and we'll support you. But the rest of the family were not very happy. So that's where I started. So when you ask me the question to share a time when I knew Swami was with me, is just, I'll tell you one incident. I called on Swami throughout that 3 years of training for every little thing, right? Lots of challenges. But the one incident that happened was, I was in my 2nd year of nursing, and I left home, and Dad dropped me off at the hostel, and I was going to start my night duty at 7 o'clock that evening. So I walked down the corridor and I entered the office, and I overhear 2 of the senior sisters saying, "Don't tell Selvanie, she will die of fright." So I walked in and I said, "What is it, you know? What is it that I'm not supposed to know, you know? I want to know." And I demanded, and I stood there. And they said to me, you know, this was a gynae ward, and there were lots of incidents happening over the night, particularly around 12 o'clock, you know, people with
spooky things.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. I won't go into too much detail of that. You know, nurses hearing things, saying things, feeling things, all that kind of thing. I just heard this, turned around, went straight to the pan room and vomited all the biryani I had at home. So frightened. And the words that the sister said was, "Selvani's coming on tonight and this might affect her." So that was enough to put me into this fear mode and panic. So from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, where our first break is, I was so frightened, just the Om Sai Rams, calling on Swami, you know, back and forth, doing things for patients, you know, all of that, but with Swami all the time, just petrified. And then by 10 o'clock that night, I had to go down to the phone booth, and I phoned my father. And I related the whole story to him, and he was very silent on the other end. And I said, Dad, did you hear everything that I said? He said, yes, I heard, but I'm very disappointed with you. And I thought, oh, what now, you know? And he said, I thought that you had a good relationship with Swami, and there's no need to be afraid nothing will happen to you. You know, where is your faith? And he said, well, if you want me to pick you up in the morning, I'll pick you up, and that will be the end of nursing, you know? But
because you were saying, I don't want to do nursing. Yeah, this is too much for me.
Yes.
Yeah? Like,
Yeah.
This is too much for me.
I think by that stage, I thought, well, that's it now. I think I gave it a try.
Give it a go.
And then it doesn't matter what the uncles say anymore.
Yeah.
And then after Dad spoke to me, and I was going to give up. I thought, I think this is it now. So what happened following that?
Prayed all night.
Prayed. Nothing happened to me all night, okay? Just to cut everything short. Nothing happened. And I returned after breakfast that morning, went to my room. And when I approached my room, I had a whole crowd of my batchmates there, because, you know, word gets around in the hospital that, you know, things are happening in that ward. So they all wanted to know what happened, and I was relating the whole story to them. And when that finished and they all left the room, just one of my good friends stayed behind, and she's also a Sai devotee. And she said to me, look at your little photo with Shurbi Baba and Sathya Sai Baba. It was just full of vibhuti. There's so much that is put onto my bookshelf, and it was also inside the frame itself. It's a glass frame, it was inside. So that reassured me about Swami's omnipresence, his omniscience, you know, and omnipotence as well. So that just sealed it for me. And of course, I stayed on.
Too good.
So that was the story.
Yeah. I had a similar incident when I was at university. It would have been about 3 months after leaving home. I was at university, and I had a small dorm room, and I had a little altar that just had a candle, one photo, and vibhuti. That was it. And I remember thinking, I wish I had my family altar, which is, you know, when I was at home, because it had all the deities, it had books of Swami. It was just a deluxe version of an altar. I had this little small thing, and I thought, I wonder if Swami knows I'm here, you know. And I remember praying one morning, quickly, just a quick Om Sai Ram, put the vibhuti on, and I knew that this vibhuti container was almost empty. So on the way to university, I was just thinking about all the little vibhuti packets you get at Baba's birthday, and I was just going to put them all together and fill up the container as much as I could. And then after a few hours, I came back to my dorm room, and I noticed that my door was open. And I thought that was strange, because I always lock the door. There's so many people living there. I always lock the door before I leave. And then I noticed my vibhuti container was sitting outside the door. I opened it, and it was full of vibhuti. And my first thought was, which auntie from the Sai Center that I go to came and filled it up? Because I was just trying to logically explain what happened. And then after I went through the whole thing, I realized Swami has done it. Swami's come, he's filled my vibhuti. And then the next question is, why did he leave it outside the room? Why didn't he just leave it on the altar? And then I opened the door, and I saw that my room was an absolute mess. And I could just hear the words, cleanliness is next to godliness. So then I cleaned my room up pristinely for the next 3 hours, hoping that he would come back. And then the second time, there's been so many times when I knew Swami was with me, but another really powerful time was I was working as a physiotherapist in Sydney. My friends and I went to the beach, and we were swimming. It was a beach next to Bondi Beach called Bronte Beach, and it was such a lovely day, and I love swimming in the ocean, and I was out with the waves, and I just lost where my friends were. I didn't even mind. I was out there. I was swimming for about 1 hour and enjoying the ocean and the waves. And then after an hour, I thought, okay, let me head back into the shore. And when I turned around to go back to shore, I realized how far I had drifted into the sea, and how far away I was from the flags, the red and yellow flags. You're supposed to swim in between those flags. And I hadn't looked back to check where they were to make sure I was inside the flags. So I was really far away. And I thought, okay, I'll just swim back. So I tried to swim back, and the waves kept pushing me back out into the sea. and I was getting tired, and I thought, I think I'm in a bit of trouble, but I wasn't panicked. And in that moment, you're supposed to put your hand up, and the lifesavers will come and get you. But I forgot all about that, and then I thought, okay, let me just enjoy it a bit more. Maybe the ocean will just take me back to the flags. So I did that for a little bit, and then I thought, no, I need to get back now. So I tried again. Now I'm getting tired, and then I'm thinking, oh no, I'm tired now. So I turned my back on the shore, and I just said to Swami, please help me. I think I need to go back now. And as I turned back to just give it a third go and swim back to the shore, this lifesaver was just above me on a surfboard. And he said, how are you doing? And I just said to him, I'd like to go back now. But it was so quick from asking Swami for help to the lifesaver coming that I thought it was, he just answered my prayer instantly. And he put me on the surfboard, and within seconds I was back on the shore. And I remember standing up, looking at him saying, I prayed for you. And he said, okay, just next time swim between the flags. But it was an instant thing, and I just knew that Swami was with me. So now, Mom, tell me about the interview that you had with Swami.
Okay, so this happened 1980, about Christmas time, around that time. And I'd finished my 3 years of training, thankfully. And my parents had taken my sister and I to India. With my my sister, you call her Sathya, was just finished her HSC. So she didn't even get her results. I finished my training at the end of that year. And we insisted on going to Shirdi. We said to my dad, I think we want to go to Shirdi first before we see Sathya Sai Baba, the younger version. And he tried to dissuade us, because he said for young girls to travel, this is 1980 now, it's very hard to get from Nasik to Shirdi. You got to, we had to take a bullock cart and walk and everything else that went with it. But we were very happy. We were very excited to go, and the conditions were not all that great, but we were fine. And then we returned to Puttaparthi. As we enter the gate in Puttaparthi, the four of us now, this is Mom, Dad, sister, and myself.
Yeah.
There were a whole lot of South Africans, near the gate, and they said, "Why did it take so long? Why? We are waiting for you. Why are you taking so long?"
No mobile phones back then.
No phones. No. And my father explained. He said, "Oh, these girls, they insisted on going to Shirdi.
Yeah.
So we changed our plan and went to Shirdi." And so my father said, "Why?" And then they said they asked Swami for an interview, and he said, "One more family." So every day, the South Africans will come to the gate, hoping to see us, because they know we were the only ones that were not there at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, so that happened, and then the South Africans were called for an interview. We had general interview, and Swami spoke to Dad and said, "You're a very patient man. You've been here 4 times. It's the first time I'm talking to you." Then he took Mom, my sister, and myself for a private interview. There was another lady there too, somewhere in the background there. And Swami was so loving to my mother, spoke in Tamil to my mother, and reassured her, had his hand around her and said, you're not to worry, and everything will be okay. And that was really good. He sort of reassured her there. And then when he came to my turn, because I'm sitting next, he suddenly, his whole, demeanor changed, and like a father, he sat up and he said to me, and I am busting to tell him, "Swami, I'm finished my nursing, that's all that was in my head, And then Swami said, "So how are you?" And I said, "Swami, I'm finished my nursing, I'm done." So who do you think was more relieved?
Because you called on him so much.
So much during the 3 years. And, I thought, I'm going to stick it out,
Yeah.
And definitely, I think Swami looked quite relieved.
She's finished now.
She's finished now. So that, and then he also talked about my wedding and gave us a month and year for it, although we had planned a certain year and certain date and everything, Swami said, no, it has to be this date.
And then it was.
And then it ended up,
Yeah.
what Swami had said. So
Too nice.
yeah, and then spoke to my sister, and that was really
Yeah.
the interview part of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Sharanya, maybe it's your turn now to talk. I've talked quite a bit.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience during the 2007 World Youth Conference.
Yeah, that was a lovely experience. So many hundreds of youth from around the world came to Puttaparthi in 2007 for the World Youth Conference, and I was good friends with a couple of girls that had many interviews with Swami, and so I got the fever and the desire to have physical contact with Swami. I really wanted, because Swami is right there now, and I wanted so much more from him than just hearing him inside me. So I remember when I was sitting there in darshan, I said, okay, Swami, I just want you to look at me. I just want you to look at me and acknowledge me. And at one moment, I thought he looked at me, but there was so much doubt that I thought maybe it was a girl in front of me or the one next to me. And so I wasn't sure. I thought he had. And then the next darshan, he looked directly at me, and I just felt this electricity go through me. So I thought, oh, he looked at me. So he gave me what I wanted. So now then, not satisfied with that, next desire was, Swami, I want padam. And I sat in the hall meditating with my friend. And back then I could meditate for hours. The two of us would sit there for hours meditating, between darshans. There's the days in Puttaparthi are so long that feels like, so we were there meditating. I was doing Om Bhurva Swaha, and then just Vipassana, just presence meditation. And my desire was I want padam. And so we all got really excited because one darshan came and they lined us up in rows, and the row was wide enough for a wheelchair to go through. So I thought, this is it. This is my chance. I'm going to get padam. And then what ended up happening was that all the Sevadals with robes came and gave each delegate, each one of us, a robe each. And in that moment, instead of being grateful for the robe, I was thinking, why didn't you come, Swami? I thought you were coming in the wheelchair. I was so upset. I thought that was my moment. I thought I was going to get Padam Namaskar, because the whispers were he's coming in the wheelchair. We're all going to get Padam. But then obviously we got the robes, which was such a beautiful gift. And I still had the desire, so I was praying really hard. And up until that date, anything I prayed for, Swami just gave it to me. So I wasn't sure why I had to pray so hard for this. And then on the final day, we had two darshans, one in the morning. And for whatever reason, I was picked from the Australian girls to hold the cards that the Australian girls had made. And there were two of us. So I was in the front row and my friend was behind me. All the other Australian girls were in row 10 or 11, but the two of us were in the front, and there were whispers that Swami was going to come in the wheelchair. Now, I think the Australian group had stayed for 10 to 14 days. This is after the conference now, so we're still here. And Swami's darshan sometimes was car darshan. 9 out of 10 times, it was just the car zipping in and zipping back. And only once in a while he would actually come physically. So this time he came, and when you hear the Vedam come, that he's coming. So he's coming in the wheelchair and he's coming towards me, and I'm just praying in my head. And I remember chanting Vedam, Shiva Upasana, and the Gayatri Mantra both at the same time. I was so nervous. I don't even know how I was doing it, but they were both just chanting in my head. And he came and he looked every girl in the eyes, and I had cards, so I needed to be taking things from the youth. So I thought definitely he's going to talk to me, and I'll get to have this one-on-one experience with Swami. And he looked every girl in the eye. He got to me, he skipped over me and looked at the other girl next to me in the eye and kept going. And my heart just broke, and I just cried, and I wasn't sure what I did wrong and why is he not giving me this? And I just wanted to talk to him. And so I was just so upset, and I thought, have I been making up this relationship in my mind? Like, is it all been in my mind? Have I really been talking to Swami? Is it just made up? Is it just a figment of my imagination? I went through all these doubts, like, does Swami actually know I exist? Like, all these things were going through my mind. And then 10 minutes later, he went to the boys. Apparently he picked up all the cards from the Australian boy. I found out later. And then he came in front and about 10 meters ahead. So there were the international youth, the local Pudapati female students, and then Swami came in front of them. And from that position, he stopped and he looked directly at me for what felt like an eternity. And because he'd looked at me before, I felt the same electricity. I just had no doubt that he looked at me. And so I just calmed down, and I just remember thinking, no, he knows I'm here. There has to be a reason for whatever he's doing. So I just felt like, look, Swami knows I'm here. The relationship is real. You know, all the doubts went away. So after darshan, after he left, I just gave the cards to my friend behind me, and I said, I'm going to the meditation tree. So I made my way to the Buddha tree, the meditation tree. I sat there for, would have been an hour and a half meditating. And I just asked the question, Swami, why did you not take the cards? Why are you not giving me what I'm asking for? And I heard so clearly, he said, I have kept you away from my physical form your whole life. Stay away from my physical form and I will give you everything you desire. I'm getting so much. And it was so, so clear. And I thought, okay, well, that's fair enough. And if I trace my life, it's always been like that. The connection has always been heart to heart. It's never been physical. So I realized I had this party bug. I wanted more and more and more from the physical form, but that's not my path this lifetime. So I was content. It was fine. So then for the final darshan, we all come in. The Australian girls were row 15 or 13 or something. We were way back, nowhere near the front. So I thought, okay, well, that's it. Swami, there's no chance that I'm going to get any kind of pardon or anything. And Swami gave me my message. I have to accept it. And so I just put my knees up and thought I'm going to go to sleep now. Had an emotional day, been crying the whole day. So I just fell asleep, deep into sleep. And then I just felt this tap on my shoulder. I don't even know how long I was asleep, but I felt these 3 taps on my shoulder. And I opened my eyes and Swami was standing in the hall, but by his balcony. And he was just blessing everyone. He was actually standing up from the wheelchair and blessing everyone. And this was our final darshan. And I just put my hands like that, and I just absorbed all the beautiful energy that Swami was giving us, and it was so lovely. And then he finished up and went away. And I turned to the girl behind me, who was one of my closest friends, and I said, "Thank you so much for waking me up and tapping me on my shoulder." And she said, "No one's touched you. I haven't touched you. No one's touched you." And I thought, oh, he gave me what I wanted. It makes me so emotional. Yeah. In a different form than what I anticipated, but he still gave me what I was asking for.
Maybe at this point I might just share this little point about you. My parents were in India, and I was pregnant with Sharanya, and she turned up a couple of weeks earlier. So the way my parents had planned the trip was that they would be in time for my delivery, when I came back, when they returned. However, she turned up a few weeks earlier, and at that time, Swami and I and Tata, or parents, they had this conversation, and where Swami said, "Aren't you happy? You have a grandson." So parents thought, "Oh yeah, yes, the daughter is going to have a baby, and we are going to get back, for the birth and things." And they didn't think too much about it. Anyway, they returned to South Africa. You are on the bed, baby on the bed. They come in and they get really confused about it because you were not supposed to emerge at that time. You had a couple more weeks to go, and they're so surprised to see the baby already there. And then my father said, "Yes, this is what Swami said on that day, the day that you were born." That Swami said that are you happy? Wow. Are you happy that you have a grandson? But granddaughter was born. So maybe Swami knew that you were here.
Yeah, I remember talking to Tata about that. I didn't know it was on the actual day, but I remember Tata told me his lesson in the whole thing. When Swami said grandson, my granddad was wanting a boy, was wanting a grandson, and then I came and I was a granddaughter, and he felt Swami's lesson to him was boy, girl, it doesn't matter as long as the baby is healthy. And that's wanting a boy, that idea, he said that stopped after that day.
Yes. Yeah. Swami has said that many occasions. Boy or girl, no difference.
As long as it's healthy. Yeah. So what's the biggest lesson Swami's taught you?
I think for me, along that journey, all along that journey is his oneness principle, where we need to see the divinity in all of his creation, That is the biggest lesson for me. And to practice that, I feel just living in love, just trying to help people, or just smiling and, just leading a positive life, that kind of thing. Just living in love. It's so easy. And I think that's the biggest message for me.
Yeah.
For you?
For me, the biggest thing Swami's taught me, which I feel is the most important, is he taught me how to listen to my inner voice. He first taught me how to hear it by first taming my monkey mind. He taught me step by step how to do that through the inner voice. And so he taught me how to hear the inner voice, and then how to have the courage to follow it. Because often it doesn't exist in the time and dimension that we're in. You know why it said what it said to you in hindsight, but at the time it sometimes takes a bit of courage to follow it when it doesn't quite make sense at the time. And so he's given me, so now anytime I have a question I ask, I hear the answer and then I follow it. So that's been the biggest thing that he's taught me. Yeah.
Wow, okay then.
So shall we talk about what we've learned from each other?
I think so. I think it's good to share, because since it's a mother and daughter episode.
You want to go first, or I'll go first?
Well, okay, I'll go first. Okay. So I think what I've learned from you, firstly, that we must be accepting to our children, and listen to our children, because sometimes you come from a different perspective and angle, and your opinions are different. So the things, I'll just name a couple things. One is, what you've taught me is, you give others permission to treat you the way they do, right? That's very, very important, and I'd like to share that, So you give others permission to treat you the way they do. The second thing is about say thank you to compliments, which it's so hard for us to do. If someone says, oh, you have a beautiful sari, you'll say, oh, it's 20 years old, granny gave you, and you get, there's always a story behind it. So what you taught me was say thank you, and that's it. Thank you. And then you introduced me to the 4 agreements, which I've shared with lots of people too. I hope I can remember them. That is, firstly, is to always speak your truth, Don't say yes when you really mean no, And that, whether it's work or whether it's the Sai organization or socially, we should stick to that. The other agreement is not to take anything personally. The third is to always do your best. So if you're sick, you can only do 80%, and don't be hard on yourself.
And the fourth is assumptions.
And the fourth is do not assume. It gets you into a lot of trouble.
Ask questions.
So these are the main things that you have taught me, which I follow and I share with others as well, because it makes our life so much easier in that way.
And I've learned that from other people. So the 4 agreements are by this gentleman called Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote a book, The 4 Agreements.
Okay, that's it.
And so just to put it into practice is so simple to understand, but very difficult to put into practice, and it takes time.
But life's so much better once you follow it. It's the application. It's knowing it is fine, but applying it to everyday, events.
Well, the biggest thing you've taught me is to face your fears. To anything that you're worried about or scared about, just face it head on. And one of the biggest examples was public speaking, which is something many, many years ago you weren't 100% comfortable with. And so you enrolled yourself into Toastmasters, which is this, I think it's an international company that teaches people how to do public speaking. And then you went to those sessions and learned how to do public speaking, and then took on bigger positions in the organization where you had to stand and give talks to large audiences, and even do webinars like this. And I remember telling you at my wedding, Mum, there were probably 4 or 5 people that gave speeches, and Mum was the only one who delivered a speech without any paper. And and you just consolidated everything that they taught you and put it into practice. So anytime I'm worried about something, I just see what's the skill that I need to develop and how can I develop it. Just keep it simple, and then go find people that can help you with that skill. Another thing is faith. So just trusting Swami and having faith in him, and setting up an altar at home and praying every day, and just instilling Swami in your daily life. And everything when you encounter people, you just see Swami and other people and treat them like that. And I would say another thing is watching you support other people. So just very generous with your time and generous with, giving so much attention and care to people, whether they're elderly or whether they're kids. Mum would help medical students, prepare for their exams and their interviews, and just did it from the goodness of your heart that those children remember you to this day, and invite you to your weddings, with their weddings, even though they haven't seen you in like 5-10 years. So it's just, that's living in love. Yeah. So to wrap up, do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share?
What I think is something that is, now that you yourself have a child, and I have a son who has 2 girls as well, the advice I would give to parents and grandparents is to accept and respect our children's opinions and how they bring up their family and their children as well. Like, we come from a different generation, so we don't expect you to follow everything that we did. And I think the greatest thing is to accept, because there's like 2 homes, we have our son and we have Sharanya, and they're 2 different ways of running their home and bringing up the children. So we as parents and grandparents, we have to respect that and follow, whatever way you're bringing up the children or the family. So that makes it so much easier. It is very different in both homes, and the thing is, it's up to parents and grandparents to be more acceptable. Yes, you do ask for advice, and wherever we can guide you, that's okay, that's fine. But in the long term, it's more acceptance and respect to all, for all parents and grandparents.
And Sathya and I both feel so supported by you and Dad. Yeah, just so supported. And we've got different methods that we're following, different experts, different books that we've read. And so some things are quite different, but we both feel equally supported. So for me,
and what about you? I mean,
just final thoughts. I think for anyone watching, whether they're young or older, whether they're mothers or daughters, not mothers yet, something to end with. I feel that the spiritual path requires effort, and that's something that Uncle Arthur from Brisbane taught all of us, taught me and so many youth, that the spiritual, and I remember him saying that over and over again, and I didn't get it when I was younger, that the spiritual path requires effort. I just thought, if I pray hard enough, Swami will enlighten me. He can do it. Why doesn't he do it? It's so easy just for him to wave a wand and make me enlightened. But Uncle Arthur taught me that the spiritual path requires effort. And I remember giving a talk to some Balvikas graduates in South Africa once when we were visiting. And I remember saying to them, all of you have finished the curriculum of Balvikas, and the curriculum have been set by adults and your gurus. They call their teachers gurus. And so each week there were lessons that were prepared, and you all learned the same things at the same time together as a cohort. I said, now when you have graduated from Balvikas and you're going into your life, now the curriculum is set by Swami. And Swami now is your ultimate guru, which he always was. He's your ultimate guru, and he's going to prepare the lessons for you. And that's just how I lead my life as well. So what's the lesson in front of me? It's often whatever's upsetting me, or I'm not understanding, or I'm confused, or some kind of chaos is in my life. That's probably the lesson. The lesson is in that. And so, over the years, I've had lessons on anger, judgment, even cleanliness, just the smallest things. And to spend a month, sometimes 2 months, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 1 year on one lesson, and listen and follow his instructions that he's giving us, we then progress. And so it's stepping stones to enlightenment, and the spiritual path requires effort. I would say that would be the final thought to end on.
Yes, my final thought would be I'd like to put energy into the future generation, our children.
Yeah.
That's what I love doing. And with Swami's guidance and help, I'd like to just continue with that.
The education.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
So
Let's wrap up.
We'll wrap up. We might do a little prayer and then...
Om Sai Ram. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Dear Swami, thank you for guarding us, for guiding us and protecting us. Oh, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Sai Ram, everyone. On behalf of all the Sai devotees of Australia and globally, I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere appreciation to Sisters Selvanie and Sharanya Naidoo for an inspiring session this evening. We are indeed grateful to you, dear sisters, for the time and effort you have taken to join us and share your wonderful experiences. Thank you so much. Jai Sai Ram.
गजवदना गणनाथा नाथा गजवदना गणनाथा नाथा गजवदना गणनाथा नाथा गजवदना गणनाथा गौरी वरदनया गुणालया ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा अल्लाहुतुं ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा पतिश साई शंकरा तुम ही हो मेरे प्राण पतिश साई शंकरा तुम ही हो मेरे प्राण ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा सौराष्ट्र यीशु बुद्ध तुम हो सबके सौराष्ट्र यीशु बुद्ध तुम हो सबके सच्चिदानंद साई तेरा वृंदावन शुभ ओ सच्चिदानंद साई तेरा वृंदावन शुभ अल्लाहुतुं ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा पतिश साई शंकरा तुम ही हो मेरे प्राण अल्लाहुतुं ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा सौराष्ट्र यीशु बुद्ध तुम हो सबके सच्चिदानंद साई तेरा वृंदावन शुभ ओ सच्चिदानंद साई तेरा वृंदावन शुभ अल्लाहुतुं ईश्वरभितुं महावीर नानकरा हरि हरि नारायण हरि हरि नारायण हरि हरि नारायण हरि हरि नारायण हरि गोविंद नारायण
మీరు ఎక్కడ పోయినప్పటికీ నేను వెంట ఉన్నాను.
You may go anywhere, Bhagavan is with you.
మీకు ఏ విధమైనటువంటి బాధలు వచ్చినా నేను చూసుకుంటాను.
Bhagavan will take care of all your difficulties.
ధైర్యంతో దైవం యొక్క భావమును మీరు అభివృద్ధి పరచుకొని సేవల్లో పాల్గొనండి.
With all the courage and divine thoughts to serve the society.
కొన్ని నష్టములైనా కూడా పర్వాలేదు, మీరు సహించుకొని సేవలు మానుకోకుండా ఉండండి.
You may suffer certain losses but never give up service.
హ్యాపీ ఏది హ్యాపీ?
We say happiness. What is that happiness?
జీవితంలో ఏది హ్యాపీ లేదు.
Nothing is happy in this
అంత
world.
అప్పటికప్పుడే వస్తుంది, అప్పటికప్పుడే అంత పాసింగ్ క్లౌడ్స్.
Things come then and there itself and they pass on.
కానీ పర్మనెంట్ అనేటువంటి హ్యాపీ ఒక దైవత్వంతో మాత్రమే ఉంటుండాలి.
The permanent happiness is with God only.
ఇది హార్ట్ టు హార్ట్, లవ్ టు లవ్.
It is a connection heart to heart, love to love.
ఇదే మీరు పెంచుకోవాలి.
This you should develop.
ఇది మీ యొక్క నిజమైనటువంటి యొక్క భక్తి ప్రపత్తులకు సరైన నిదర్శనము.
This is the true proof of your devotion and sincerity.
స్వామి యొక్క ఆశీర్వాదములు అమితంగా ఉంటున్నాయి. మీరు సుఖంగా, శాంతిగా, ఆనందంగా భక్తి ప్రపత్తులతో జీవించి దేశానికి సరైనటువంటి యొక్క సేవలు చేయాలని నేను ఆశీర్వదిస్తూ నా ప్రసంగాన్ని వివరిస్తున్నాను.
You have Bhagavan's blessings in abundance. Bhagavan wants you to lead a peaceful, happy, blissful life and grow in sincerity, devotion and steadfastness, and brings his divine discourse to a close.
स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्तजना संरक्षक भक्तजना संरक्षक हरि हरेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः